On the 10th of March this year, in Beijing's Great Hall of the People, a carefully choreographed ceremony took place. Xi Jinping held up his right fist and placed his left hand on a red leather copy of China's constitution.
我宣誓，努力奋斗，宣誓人习近平。
The oath was beamed live on state television across China. Xi vowed to build a prosperous, strong, democratic, civilized, harmonious, and great modern socialist country. Xi Jinping was handed an unprecedented third term as president, capping an ascent and becoming China's most powerful leader in generations.
Xi Jinping 赞成
National People's Congress, or NPC, a largely ceremonial legislature, unanimously endorsed Xi Jinping, with all of its 2,952 present members casting votes in favor of his reappointment.
我们要更好统筹。
Xi's re-election is the culmination of a remarkable rise from a relatively little-known party member to the leader of a global superpower. Is the Chinese leader Xi Jinping really a global force to be reckoned with? Halfway through 2023, China is facing a confluence of problems, and the picture isn't looking all that perfect.
Xi Jinping began his third term as president only in March of this year and as Secretary General of the party last October. But already he's been faced with all kinds of controversies and challenges ranging from the economy domestically, international issues ranging from Taiwan to Ukraine and, of course, U.S. relations. And most recently and most puzzlingly, the abrupt departure, removal of some of his close allies and some of the highest positions in the Chinese government, especially in foreign affairs and the military. The departure of the foreign minister, Qin Gang, is still a mystery.
China's defense minister Li Shangfu has not been seen in public for more than 2 weeks now and has reportedly missed several meetings. Another abrupt disappearance is that of the Chinese foreign minister Qin Gang in the month of July. It was later announced that Qin Gang had been removed from his post. So, what's the mystery surrounding China's missing ministers? China's economy is facing multiple challenges: sluggish consumer spending, a crisis-ridden property market, flagging exports, youth unemployment, and government debt. Does Xi's government have the ability to recognize and fix the economy's deep-seated problems? Since the start of the war in Ukraine, Xi Jinping, China's president, has been unwavering in his support for his friend Putin. Although Xi has not openly endorsed Russia's invasion, he has refused to condemn it and has echoed many of its justifications for the war. Why and how has China shown support for Russia? This year, Chinese President Xi Jinping did not attend the G20 summit in New Delhi. The decision has marked a departure from his consistent attendance at previous G20 meetings. It has raised questions about China's underlying reason for not attending G20. China's Belt and Road Initiative, popularly called BRI, seems to be in big trouble. A part of the Chinese campaign to emerge as the world leader, BRI has been criticized over the years for plunging host countries into debt traps and creating infrastructure projects that have little value. Recently, Italy, the only country from the G7 in China's BRI, declared that it is going to exit China's ambitious project. Why did it take this decision? Let's dig deeper. Disappearing acts have become a recurring theme in China. There is a history of well-known personalities vanishing from public view for days. Industrialist Jack Ma, tennis player Peng Shuai, and actress Fan Bingbing are some famous examples. All three of them reappeared in public after some time. In the month of July, speculation intensified around the whereabouts of Chinese leader Xi Jinping's hand-picked foreign minister Qin Gang, who also went missing. He wasn't seen in public for more than 3 weeks. The minister skipped major diplomatic engagements, fueling speculation about what happened to him, both inside and outside China. Xi picked Qin as his envoy to Washington in 2021, even though Qin hadn't previously served as an ambassador, nor had he handled any portfolios directly related to China-US affairs. Considered a trusted aide to Xi, Qin climbed the ranks from being an envoy to a foreign minister in less than 2 years. An unusually fast promotion in a system that traditionally values experience in addition to political connections. China removed Qin Gang from his ministerial post in late July, just 7 months after he started the job. His tenure was the shortest in that role. No explanation was given for his removal. His predecessor, Wang Yi, was reinstated. On the 19th of September, it is reported that China removed Qin Gang from the position, after an investigation concluded that he had an affair and fathered a child in the US while serving as US ambassador. Qin Gang now remains under investigation for possible national security violations. Moving on, the most recent senior Communist Party official to disappear from public view is General Li Shangfu, China's defense minister. It's been 3 weeks since he was last seen in public, and there is still no official confirmation about what has happened to the man who is the public face of China's military. Li, along with 8 other senior officials, is under investigation for the corrupt procurement of military equipment relating to his time at the helm of the Equipment Division of the Central Military Commission, the military's ruling body, between September 2017 and October 2022. The incident is raising questions about the durability of Xi Jinping's cabinet, after Li became the second high-profile minister to disappear with little or no explanation from public view. The troubles involving the senior diplomatic and military officials, whose appointments were all approved by Xi, speak about the opaque and perhaps flawed vetting process that senior appointments are subject to under Xi's rule. As the CCP has moved away from the collective leadership of a decade ago to the centralized rule of Xi, questioning Xi's judgment has become increasingly dangerous.
Xi Jinping he began an anti-corruption move within the military as soon as he became Secretary General 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago, and it's just been a continuing problem for him. The fact that this is happening among people who were handpicked by him, all 3 of those, the defense minister, foreign minister, and the head of the rocket force, were close allies and chosen personally by Xi Jinping.
In the first few years of Xi Jinping, China witnessed rapid economic growth, rising wealth, big spending on the military. In fact, it was the only major world economy to experience GDP growth in 2020, when its GDP increased by 2.3%. And then, with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, things changed for Beijing. In the year 2022, it posted one of its worst economic performances in decades because of the COVID-19 crisis and the US-China trade war. China's economic slowdown, which started in April 2023, became a clear indication that the country's post-COVID recovery ran out of steam. Concerns for the world's second-largest economy further intensified after the country reported weaker than expected economic activity data for the month of July. The data highlighted intensifying pressure on the economy from multiple fronts, prompting Beijing to cut key policy rates to shore up activity. Just before the release of a batch of July data, China's central bank unexpectedly chopped one set of key interest rates and followed it with cuts on other rates hours later, underlining the rapid loss of the post-COVID economic rebound that has shaken global financial markets.
I think Xi Jinping is losing his grip somewhat on the control of the economy and directing it in the direction that he wants.
Additionally, China suspended publishing youth jobless data, which hit a record high of 21.3% in June. The world's second-largest economy is also facing a crisis in its once booming property sector. The crisis has been gaining momentum since Evergrande, one of the country's largest property developers, failed to make bond payments in 2021, and the story is just not restricted to Evergrande. Many international companies are relocating their investments and Asian headquarters out of China due to growing unease regarding security controls and interference of Xi's government. An unfavorable business environment can plunge China's economy further.
Now, with the very strict centralization where very few people can give authority for things, that actually inhibits, I think, his ability to stay in control and to guide the economy in the direction he wants. He has implemented this foreign espionage act that is targeting foreign companies and foreigners, and so you're seeing a drastic downfall, a plummet of foreign investment, foreign tourism, foreign influence, and I would say foreign investment, and foreign confidence in Xi.
In February last year, 3 weeks before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin met Xi Jinping in Beijing. A joint statement by the two leaders announced that friendship between Russia and China has no limits. The two leaders have met more than 40 times in recent years. They have increasingly grown familiar and now refer to each other as dear friends. China has become an increasingly important trading partner for Russia. After Russia invaded Ukraine a year ago, Western nations imposed strict sanctions on Russia, banning imports of oil and exports of high-tech products. Many Western firms had cut their connections with Russia entirely, and its trade with the US, UK and EU countries slumped over the course of 2022. However, China's overall trade with Russia hit a record high level of $190 billion in 2022, a 30% increase on the year before. Russia and China have built stronger ties in recent decades, supporting each other on various global issues as they seek to counter US influence. The war in Ukraine has laid bare global divisions and partnerships. The West has armed Kyiv and sanctioned Russia, while China strengthened its relationship with Moscow. China has refrained from publicly condemning Russia's military aggression, which has drawn criticism from Ukraine, the United States, and its allies. But China and Russia seem to have forged a friendship with no limits.
At the invitation of the Government of Republic of India, Premier of the State Council Li Qiang will attend the 18th G20 summit.
With this statement, China confirmed that President Xi won't be attending the G20 Leaders Summit that was held in New Delhi on the 9th and 10th of September. The invite to Xi was rejected just 2 weeks after he attended the BRICS summit in South Africa. In fact, President Xi and Prime Minister Modi had met on the sidelines of the summit in Johannesburg. The leaders agreed to step up efforts to expedite the border troops' disengagement and de-escalate in western sector of Ladakh along the line of actual control. But divisions re-emerged over a potential expansion of the group. Both Russia and China are keen to breathe new life into the BRICS bloc, intending to boost its global clout. Ever since Putin announced that he wouldn't be able to attend the G20 event because of the Ukraine war, all eyes were on Xi. Remember, Xi has never skipped a G20 event since assuming office in March 2013. Did he take this decision to avoid any possible isolation from the West on a global stage?
Chinese foreign policy generally fears about isolationism among the community of nations. That includes if President Putin had communicated on August 28 that he is not attending, then flowing from the Bali meeting of 2:18, that is Russia and China against the 18 other members of the G20, then it is quite possible if President Xi visits New Delhi, then he would have been isolated. This is the worst case scenario for China's foreign policy. That would be very hard for them to swallow.
But after the event, fellow G20 nations hailed India's success in reaching an agreement on a joint communique that remained in question just days before world leaders gathered in New Delhi. Not only that, apart from finding consensus on the war in Ukraine, the African Union was also made a part of the G20 group. The event also took action on issues like climate change and debt sustainability, which are priorities of emerging markets. A strong message was sent out. India and other members succeeded at the G20 without China's Xi. And then there was this. India, US, EU and Saudi Arabia announced India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor on the sidelines of the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi. The mega project is being seen as the rival of China's Belt and Road Initiative.
为“一带一路”建设美好的未来，为各国发展繁荣，为这次高峰论坛圆满成功，为各位嘉宾和家人的健康干杯！
This is what Chinese President Xi Jinping had to say at the first ever Silk Road Summit held in May 2017 in Beijing. Xi hosted leaders from 29 nations to showcase his cherished One Belt, One Road initiative that he launched in 2013. Later, it was rebranded simply as the Belt and Road Initiative. The modern route under the BRI seeks to connect Asia with Africa and Europe via land and maritime networks. With this ambitious project, China aims to stabilize its western peripheries and rekindle its economy. China touted it as a project of the century with an estimated cost of over $1 trillion. The project is aimed at constructing highways, bridges, hydroelectric dams, and other infrastructure. But of late, Xi's grand plan seems to be losing its footing. China's BRI is running into several issues in its partner countries. In a private meeting during the Group of G20 summit held in India, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni conveyed Italy's plans to withdraw from the BRI. This move comes as the investment pact has increasingly become a litmus test for Italy's relations with the United States. Italy is the only G7 country to sign up for the BRI, which it did in 2019. G7 is the grouping of advanced economies of US, the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan, with the European Union as a non-enumerated member. Italy joined the BRI at a time when it was desperate for investment and infrastructure building, having survived 3 recessions in 10 years. Its government at the time did not share warm relations with the EU and was happy to turn to China for the funds it could pump in. 4 years later, the agreement hasn't done much for Italy. For Beijing, a G7 country joining the BRI had been a big diplomatic win, and Rome walking out just ahead of the initiative's 10th anniversary will be a loss of face. Italy's decision to exit the investment pact indicates a significant policy shift and underscores the delicate balance the nation must maintain between its international relationships, especially with the United States and China.
The Belt and Road Initiative is definitely failing, and I don't think it will survive this decade.
International leaders don't mince words echoing their thoughts about Xi. Recently, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock called Xi Jinping a dictator in a television interview in the US. Beijing lashed out at Germany and summoned the German ambassador. In June this year, US President Joe Biden also referred to Xi as a dictator, sparking a fierce backlash from Beijing. The Chinese government had reportedly reprimanded the US ambassador to China over the comments made by the US president. Xi's third term might have set him up to become modern China's longest-serving head of state, which means Xi could well rule into his 70s if his health permits and no competitor emerges. However, in less than a year, things have started looking unfavorable for the country. A storm of turbulence is roiling Xi's hand-picked ruling elite, raising questions about his judgment and dampening international confidence in his governance. Chinese citizens and businesses are losing confidence in the ability of the government to recognize and fix China's deep-rooted problems.
For Chinese people, what is the Chinese dream? Their personal dream is, one of the main ones is home ownership. And if they're unable to obtain loans to gain home ownership, or if they're unable companies are unable to complete housing for people to purchase, that is a serious blow to Chinese consumers. And it all does eventually lead back to Xi Jinping. I think Xi Jinping's control over China is weakening despite his attempts at imposing stronger central authority.
Will Xi Jinping pay heed to the piling internal and global rage against China? His own future at multiple levels depends on it.